Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to the second episode of our weekly places in news. In this session, we are going to cover those places that were in news between the 28th of March and the 3rd of April. So if you're liking this new initiative, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. So let's start with the first place that was in news, which is the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. But first, let's look at the context. Let's understand why this pipeline was in news and why the location of this pipeline can be important for our prelims exam. The Nord Stream pipeline is primarily in news because of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. In this context, Germany has tried to reduce its dependency on Russian oil and gas because Europe in general is very dependent on Russian fossil fuels, and Western countries led by European countries are trying to reduce their dependency on Russian oil and gas. In this regard, the US came to the help of the European Union, and last week they signed a LNG deal to reduce the dependency of European Union, especially Germany, on Russian oil and gas. It's in this context that the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was in news. So let's take a look at the region and understand the important geographical features that are present in and around the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Let's do this by taking a practice question. Which of the following countries constitute the Baltic states? Is it Romania, Serbia, Moldova, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Norway, Sweden, and Finland, or none of the above? The correct answer is option B. Baltic states refers to Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Let's understand this by looking at a relevant map. See, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline transports natural gas from Russia to Germany. This is part of the larger Nord Stream pipeline projects. In fact, Nord Stream Pipeline 1, which you can see in this map over here, was constructed back in 2011. And recently, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline construction had been taken up by Russia and Germany. This gas pipeline passes under the Baltic Sea, as you can see in the map, and that's the reason why the Baltic states, which are the littoral states of the Baltic Sea, can be important. There are three countries over here that are referred to as the Baltic states. This includes Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. All these are former members of the Soviet Union, of the Soviet Republic. After Soviet Union disintegrated, they became independent nations in Eastern Europe, and they're often referred to as the Baltic states. This key pipeline that transports gas from Russia to Germany passes under the Baltic Sea. If the Nord Stream 2 pipeline were to be completed, it would have reduced Russia's dependency on Ukraine because the traditional oil and gas pipeline that transports oil and gas from Russia to Europe passes through Ukraine. But Russia is trying to reduce its dependency on Ukraine by taking up the Nord Stream project with Germany. So pipeline 1 was completed in 2011 itself, and the construction of the second pipeline had begun. But following the war and the imposition of sanctions by Western countries, Germany has put a halt to Nord Stream Pipeline 2 project. Over here, it is also important to know why the pipeline has been named as the Nord Stream pipeline. The term Nord refers to the Nordic countries that are present in this region, which includes Norway, Sweden, Finland, and even Denmark. There are a few other smaller islands as well in this region. Collectively, they are all referred to as the Nordic countries or the Nordic region. So the pipeline passing through this region has been named as the Nord Stream pipeline. So because of the developments surrounding the Nord Stream pipeline, it's important to know the alignment of the pipeline. It connects Russia with Germany through the Baltic Sea. You should know which are the Baltic states, and you should know which are the Nordic countries. Now let's take up the second place that was in news. We are going to look at the integrated test range of the DRDO. The integrated test range of DRDO was in news because last week a medium range surface to air missile was tested at the ITR facility of DRDO. So let's take a question on this topic and let's understand the geography and the location surrounding the integrated test range of DRDO. Which of the following statements are incorrect? DRDO's ballistic missile tests are conducted in the Arabian Sea, while cruise and short-range missiles are tested in the Bay of Bengal. The ITR is located right next to Sriharikota, which is the spaceport of ISRO. Wheeler Island where DRDO's missile testing takes place, has been renamed as Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Island. Amongst these given statements, the first two statements are incorrect. So the right answer is option B, 1 and 2 only, because the question is asking you to identify the incorrect statements. So let's understand what has been given in these statements by taking a look at the map and understand where the ITR facility of DRDO is located. See, ITR or Integrated Test Range is located at the Wheeler Island, which has been recently renamed as the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Island, and it is part of the Balsore district of Odisha. This is the only missile testing facility of DRDO. There are no missile tests conducted in the Arabian Sea. This is what makes the first statement incorrect. All the missiles, be it ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, short range, medium range missiles, they're all tested at the ITR facility in Odisha, and the missiles are fired towards the Bay of Bengal. The second statement, on the other hand, is also incorrect because India's spaceport, Sriharikota, is located off the coast of Andhra Pradesh. So it is not located right next to ITR facility. It is located quite far away from the DRDO's missile testing range. This is what makes the first and second statements incorrect, whereas the third statement is correct because the Wheeler Island, where the ITR facility is located, has been renamed as the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Island. So please note that India's missile testing does not take place in the Arabian Sea, given its proximity to rival Pakistan, and hence the DRDO has set up a permanent testing facility known as ITR at Balsore. Then talking about India's spaceports, ISRO has recently proposed a second spaceport for India. Currently, all the rocket launches of ISRO are taking place at Sriharikota, that is located off the coast of Andhra Pradesh. But launching rockets from Sriharikota comes with a cost. When the rockets are launched from Sriharikota, they have to perform a maneuver known as the dog leg maneuver in order to avoid passing over Sri Lanka, as the debris material could fall over populated areas. So executing this dog leg maneuver will involve more fuel expenditure, and thereby it reduces the payload capacity when rockets are fired from Sriharikota. So ISRO has been looking for another spaceport from where we can directly launch rockets into the Indian Ocean, so that there are no land areas or populated areas that could be threatened by the debris that could fall down following the launch sequence. So for this purpose, ISRO has zeroed down Kulasekari over here in the Tuticorin district of Tamil Nadu at the southern tip of India, where the second spaceport is going to come up. From here, the rockets can be launched straight into the Indian Ocean, and there is no landmass that we need to worry about over here, thereby avoiding the dogleg maneuver. This will increase the fuel efficiency and payload capacity of rockets that would be launched from the new spaceport that's coming up at Kulasekari. Now let's look at the third place that was in news. We are going to talk about Australia's Great Barrier Reef. This location in Australia was in news in the context of coral bleaching, which has emerged as a great environmental concern as a direct result of climate change and global warming. Climate change and global warming have raised the temperatures of the seas and the oceans. It has also resulted in acidification of the oceans, and as a result, corals are getting bleached, especially at the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. The Great Barrier Reef, you might have heard, is one of the largest structures made by any organism in the world. It is even recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So let's take a question on the Great Barrier Reef and understand its location. In which part of Australia is the Great Barrier Reef located? Is it in central Australia, northeastern coast of Australia, between Australian mainland and Tasmania, or between Australia and New Zealand? The correct answer is option B. The Great Barrier Reef is located towards the northeastern coast of Australia. Let me show you a map so that you can understand where exactly the Great Barrier Reef is located. This reef is essentially a large and massive coral structure that's present towards the northeast coastline of Australia facing the Coral Sea. This region you see over here happens to be the Queensland state of Australia, and towards the northeastern coast you find the Great Barrier Reef. It's a massive coral structure which can even be seen from space, and this coral reef structure is known for its biodiversity. But this critical ecosystem is getting destroyed because of coral bleaching, and the concerns have gone up because of climate change, oceanic acidification, and global warming. Various studies have shown that coral bleaching at the Great Barrier Reef has gone up significantly over the last few years, and nearly 81% of the coral structures in the northern sector over here has been entirely bleached, and climate change has been held responsible for these events. In the southern stretch of the Great Barrier Reef as well, around 74% of the coral structures have been partially bleached. So this clearly highlights the environmental threat. Along with this, you should also note that Australia is located between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. This is the Tasmanian island over here. And also note down that the Great Barrier Reef is located in the Coral Sea. Now coming to the fourth location, let's talk about the Bay of Bengal region. The Bay of Bengal was in news last week because of the BIMSTEC summit that was hosted by Sri Lanka. During the BIMSTEC summit, several important agreements were signed. The BIMSTEC charter was adopted, and the BIMSTEC members also decided to put in place a master plan for transport connectivity. The BIMSTEC happens to be an important grouping that is focused on the Bay of Bengal region. The member countries are the littoral states of Bay of Bengal, like India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, etc. So that is why the location is very important. So let's understand the economic significance of Bay of Bengal to India by taking a practice question. Which of the following statements are correct? India's EEZ or exclusive economic zone in the Bay of Bengal stretches continuously from the mainland to the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. India's EEZ in the Bay of Bengal is bordered by the EEZ of Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Myanmar only. See, both the given statements are incorrect. So the right answer is option D, neither 1 nor 2. To understand why both the statements are incorrect, we need to look at a map that helps you understand India's exclusive economic zone. See, these maritime boundaries are defined as per the provisions of UN clause or the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. As per UN clause provisions, the EEZ generally of a country extends to 200 nautical miles from the baseline of that country. So if you look at India's EEZ as per UN clause provisions, India's EEZ is not continuous from the mainland to the Andaman Nicobar Islands. Instead, India's EEZ is divided into two separate blocks. There is one stretch of EEZ that covers India's coastline, including the Lakshadweep Islands over here, and there is an entirely separate stretch of EEZ that surrounds India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands. This is what makes the first statement incorrect. And this map over here clearly depicts the EEZ of other countries that share boundaries with India's EEZ. This includes Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and as well as Thailand and Indonesia. These are the EEZs that border India's EEZ. Since India has a faraway island territory in the form of Andaman Nicobar Islands, India gets a separate block of EEZ in the Bay of Bengal that you can see in the map over here. So this borders the EEZ of Thailand, Indonesia and Myanmar as well. So that is why the first statement was incorrect. Now let me also point out a few other important locations which were in news in and around the Bay of Bengal. Last week, for example, we understood the areas in and around India-Sri Lanka maritime boundary line, that is in and around the Jaffna Peninsula, right? On similar lines, there are few other areas in the Bay of Bengal which are frequently in news. For example, the Sabang port of Indonesia, that's located over here. The Sabang port is located at the tip, at the northern tip of the Sumatran island, and this strategic port happens to be located just a few hundred kilometers away from India's Andaman Nicobar Islands. Now the Sabang port is in news because India has gained port access to the Sabang port, meaning the Indian Navy can make use of the Sabang port for logistical purposes. This increases the operational range of the Indian Navy. So that is why the location of Sabang port over here in Indonesia at the northern tip of Sumatran island is going to be important. Then apart from this, India is developing the Sitwe port over here in Myanmar as a part of the Kaladan project. The Kaladan project is a multimodal transit transport corridor project being pursued by India and Myanmar. It connects India through the sea route, through the Bay of Bengal, with the Sitwe port, from where an inland navigation route is being created over Kaladan River. This allows India to access not just Myanmar but also the northeast of India, because from River Kaladan a final stretch of road is being built which will connect Myanmar with the northeast of India, that is with Mizoram. So this creates alternative access for India to northeastern states and also improves our connectivity with Myanmar and other Southeast Asian countries. Plus, we are also pursuing a trilateral highway, that is the India-Myanmar-Thailand trilateral highway project, which connects the three countries. All these connectivity projects are integral to the BIMSTEC and the initiatives of BIMSTEC members. So now that we understood India's EEZ boundaries in the Bay of Bengal, let's take a look at India's EEZ towards the Arabian Sea as well. India shares its EEZ boundaries with the EEZ of Maldives as well over here. This is where we have one stretch of EEZ around India's coastline that covers the Lakshadweep Islands as well. This western stretch of India's EEZ shares boundaries with Pakistan's EEZ, where we have a maritime dispute at a place known as Sir Creek. This is where the Sir Creek dispute is located between India and Pakistan. Then just to help you prepare for a possible factual question on India's EEZ, I have given a table over here. Roughly remember these numbers because UPSC could ask a possible question on the extent of India's exclusive economic zone. Please note that the first block of India's EEZ that covers India's mainland and Lakshadweep Islands stretches around 1.6 million square kilometers, and the second block of India's EEZ around the Andaman Nicobar Islands stretches to around 6.6 lakh square kilometers. So in total, India's EEZ stretches to around 2.3 million square kilometers. Now coming to the fifth place in news, let's talk about Nepal. The context is that Nepal's Prime Minister recently paid a major visit to India. Several important agreements were signed, new projects and new initiatives were announced, and both the countries also decided to settle their border dispute through peaceful talks and negotiations. So as a result, Nepal is going to be very important for places in news. So let's understand Nepal's geography and key locations by taking a question. The disputed Kalapani site between India and Nepal is located near which of the following Himalayan pass? Is it Nathula, Lipulekh, Shipkila or Zojila? The correct answer is option B, Lipulekh. The Kalapani site, which is a disputed border site between India and Nepal, is located near the Lipulekh Pass. Now this is where I want you to take up an exercise. Identify the location of the other three passes mentioned over here, that is Nathula, Shipkila and Zojila. Mark out those locations and even post important facts about these locations in the comment section below. See, India and Nepal have a long-standing border dispute at two locations known as Kalapani, located over here, and at another place over here known as Susta. These are actually minor border disputes and they trace back their origin to the Treaty of Sugauli, which was signed between British India and the Kingdom of Nepal back in the 1800s. But the lack of clarity in the Treaty of Sugauli has led to border dispute between India and Nepal post-independence, and these disputes have continued over the years. But for a long period of time, these were minor disputes. It was never an irritant in the relationship because generally India and Nepal shared a very close relationship. But since 2020, the border dispute has escalated because of rising anti-India sentiments in Nepal. So that's a reason why it's important to know a little more about the Kalapani and Susta dispute and few other important locations in Nepal. See, under the Treaty of Sugauli, the Kali River, which flows over here, also known as the Sarda River or the Mahakali River, was used as a reference by the British to demarcate the boundaries between British India and the then Kingdom of Nepal. But post-independence, India and Nepal have disputed the exact origin of the Kali River, and they use different tributaries of the Kali to refer to the boundary line. And as a result, they have a different perception about the sovereignty of this region known as the Kalapani region. As you can see in the map, the Kalapani region is located at the tri-junction of India, Nepal and China, and there is an important pass located near Kalapani, that's the Lipulekh Pass. This connects India with Tibet, and this whole disputed Kalapani region falls under the Pithoragarh district of Uttarakhand. Essentially, it is under Indian administration since independence. But Nepal has also claimed the region based on these historical records. Now, the Lipulekh Pass in itself has a lot of cultural and strategic significance. Since centuries, Lipulekh Pass has been a connection between the Indian civilization and Tibet. Buddhism has traveled through the route. Local trade has taken place. And more importantly, Lipulekh Pass is used for the Manas Sarovar Yatra, the Kailash Manas Sarovar Yatra, through which Indian pilgrims travel to Tibet to pay their respect at Mount Kailash. The Lipulekh Pass also has strategic significance because both India and China have a major military presence over here. In fact, it is one of the border meeting points as well between the Indian troops and the Chinese troops. Then in the nearby region, you find another important pass known as Limpi Adura over here, which has also been claimed by Nepal. Essentially, Nepal claims this entire stretch from Lipulekh Pass to Limpi Adura, and this whole triangular region is claimed by Nepal. So apart from Kalapani, Lipulekh and Limpi Adura, the other important locations that you should be aware of includes the Darchula Lipulekh Road that has been built by India's Border Roads Organization, because this strategic road connecting Darchula with Lipulekh has been disputed by Nepal as well. Apart from this, you should know about the Gagra River that flows down from Nepal, also known as the Karnali. It has its origin near Lake Manas Sarovar in Tibet, and this transboundary river between India and Nepal happens to be a major tributary of the Ganga River. The other important rivers include the Gandaki River, which you can see over here, also known as the Narayani River or the Sapta Gandaki. This river flows down from Nepal to India, and at the place where it crosses over into India, we have the second border dispute at a place known as Susta. This border dispute also traces its origin to the Treaty of Sugauli, and both sides have different claims, different perceptions over the Susta region. Apart from that, you should take note of the Kosi River that flows down from Tibet to Nepal to India. It's also known as the Sorrow of Bihar because every year the Kosi River floods and causes enormous damage in Bihar and in other areas. Then in this map, you can also make a note of Lumbini located over here along the India-Nepal border, which is the birthplace of Lord Gautam Buddha. Also make a note of Mount Everest over here along the Tibet-Nepal border. This is Mount Kanchenjunga along Nepal's borders with Sikkim. And you can also see the Siliguri corridor over here, or also known as the Chicken's Neck of India, because this happens to be a strategic choke point for India. As you can see, it's a narrow land corridor which is of hardly 60 to 100 kilometers in width, and it is the only connection between mainland India and northeast of India. The Siliguri corridor is surrounded by the international borders of Nepal and Bangladesh. So these are some of the important locations and places that you should be aware of when you talk about India-Nepal relations. Now let's move on to the last topic, the last place in news, which is Antarctica. The Antarctica region was in news because the Indian government has introduced a bill known as the Indian Antarctic Bill in the Parliament. This bill seeks to extend the jurisdiction of Indian laws and Indian courts to Antarctica and covers the activities of Indian citizens, Indian research projects, and as well as foreigners who might be part of Indian projects in Antarctica. See, since many decades, India has been sending research expeditions to Antarctica, and India has been a signatory to the Antarctic Treaty. India has followed the provisions of the Antarctic Treaty, and the activities of Indians in Antarctica was governed through such international laws and provisions. So now India is trying to bring in its own law so that our research projects, activities of Indians, and as well as that of foreigners who are part of Indian projects can be covered and governed under Indian law, under the jurisdiction of Indian courts. For this purpose, the Indian Antarctic Bill has been introduced in the Parliament. So that is why the Antarctic region can be very important for your prelims. So let's understand this by taking a question. Which of the following statements are correct? The major seas surrounding Antarctica are the Ross Sea, the Amundsen Sea, Bellingshausen Sea, and Weddell Sea. Antarctica has no rivers or mountains. India's newest research station, Bharti, is located beside the Lasman Hill. Amongst these given statements, the second statement is incorrect. Statements 1 and 3 happen to be correct, so option C is the right answer, 1 and 3 only. So let's understand why statement 2 is incorrect and why the other two statements are correct by looking at the map of Antarctica. See, Antarctica, the southern pole of the earth, it is surrounded by the Southern Ocean. And the major seas over here include the Ross Sea, the Amundsen Sea, Bellingshausen Sea and the Weddell Sea. So clearly the first statement is correct. But the second statement is incorrect because Antarctica does have rivers, mountains and hills of its own. For example, in this map you can see the transatlantic mountain range over here. Antarctica also has a few rivers and the Onyx River happens to be the largest. The Onyx River can be found over here near the Ross Ice Shelf and the Transantarctic mountain range. So this whole region you see over here that is located below 60 degrees south is governed by the Antarctic Treaty. This region has been demilitarized. No military activities are allowed over here. Even weapon testing, missile testing is prohibited. And this region has been set aside as part of the global commons and it is meant to be used only for the good of the mankind, that is for scientific research and exploration. So many countries have set up their research stations over here, including India. India set up its first research station at the Antarctic back in 1983 and it was known as Dakshin Gangotri. After this, we have set up 2 more research stations. You can see that in the map over here. The second research station of India is known as Maitri, located near the Shkirmasher Oasis, and the latest research station of India known as Bharti has come up next to the Larsman Hills. So these are the major research stations of India in the Antarctic, and under the proposed law, activities of Indians in the Antarctic is all set to be governed under Indian law and under the jurisdiction of Indian courts. So with this, we complete this week's episode of Places in News. If you found the initiative to be helpful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.